Story Central. Level 3. Class Audio, CD 2. Student book by Angela Yanis and Libby Williams. Activity book by Sue Clark. Published by Macmillan Education, a division of Macmillan Publishers Limited. Copyright Macmillan Publishers Limited, 2015. Chapter 6. Lesson 1. Activity 1. Chapter 6. Lesson 2. Activity 1. Chapter 6. Lesson 3. Activity 1. Chapter 6. Lesson 3. Activity 3. Chapter 6. Reader's Story. Chapter 6. Lesson 5. Activity 1. Chapter 6. Lesson 5. Activity 4. Chapter 6. Lesson 6. Activity 1. Chapter 6. Review. Activity 1. Chapter 7. Lesson 1. Activity 1. Chapter 7. Lesson 2. Activity 1 and 2. Chapter 7. Lesson 3. Activity 1. Chapter 7. Lesson 3. Activity 3. Chapter 7. Reader's Story. Chapter 7. Lesson 5. Activity 1. Chapter 7. Lesson 5. Activity 4. Chapter 7. Lesson 6. Activity 1. Chapter 7. Review. Activity 1. Chapter 8. Lesson 1. Activity 1. Chapter 8. Lesson 2. Activity 1. Chapter 8. Lesson 3. Activity 1. Chapter 8. Lesson 3. Activity 3. Chapter 8. Reader's Story. Chapter 8. Lesson 5. Activity 1. Chapter 8. Lesson 5. Activity 4. Chapter 8. Lesson 6. Activity 1. Chapter 8. Review. Activity 1. Chapter 9. Lesson 1. Activity 1. Chapter 9. Lesson 2. Activity 1. Chapter 9. Lesson 3. Activity 1. Chapter 9. Lesson 3. Activity 3. Chapter 9. Reader's Story. Chapter 9. Lesson 5. Activity 1. Chapter 9. Lesson 5. Activity 4. Chapter 9. Lesson 6. Activity 1. Chapter 9. Review. Activity 1. Activity Book. Chapter 1. Review. Activity Book. Chapter 2. Review. Activity Book. Chapter 3. Review. Activity Book. Chapter 4. Review. Activity Book. Chapter 5. Review. Activity Book. Chapter 6. Review. Activity Book. Chapter 7. Review. Activity Book. Chapter 8. Review. Activity Book. Chapter 9. Review.